Assalamu alaikum, dear students, and with the new lecture in this course, Translation and Cultural Studies. And the topic of the lecture, as you can see here, is based on the already given article to you for advanced reading, the relationship between culture and language. So we are going to discuss the relationship uh, between culture and language. And in this article we have very good practical work, and the results of this practical works are here that shall give us a vivid concept or vivid examples for the close relationship between culture and language. So let's start. In this lecture, I'm going to discuss 5 things. Number 1 is the language cycle. Number 2 is the inseparability of language and culture, and we have metaphors. We have also Naida's views on this inseparability of language and culture, that they are both so close and connected that they should be considered one thing. And then the survey done by the writer of this article and conclusions of this survey. And number 5 is our survey, a kind of survey that we shall also do inside the classroom or outside the classroom for our own languages. Let's start with the point number 1, which is a language cycle. This cycle suggests that what what we think. Let's start from the think on the left side, not on the right top. The left side, think. What we think, we say, and what we say, it also creates some thinking in the inside us, and then this thinking is converted into some feeling as well, and what we feel becomes belief, and what we believe we think, and what we think we say. In this cycle, of course, we can add more phases of this cycle. We have here only 1, 2, 3, 4 phases, but basically we can also add more. Let's we analyze inside. We also retrieve information inside, because we use the language for information. We have strong sentiments towards something, some people. So either we feel hate towards something or some people, or the opposite, and then we use the language to express it. We also observe things in the outer world, and then we also internalize the feelings. My point is that this cycle can be elaborated in a different way, and it can become a cycle where a lot of cycles are there, because the language cycle is not so simple as shown in this slide. But this slide tells us what happens usually when we use the language. So the language is a reflection of what we think, a reflection of what we feel, what we believe, what we think is right, what we love, what we hate, what we want, our desires, our wishes, our things that we need or what we want in the life, and so on and so forth. So with this simple depiction of a language cycle, which happens with everyone, the human beings, those who use the language, with this concept, with this depiction, we can move to the next point, which is this one: the idea of inseparability of language and culture. You can see this image, that you cannot separate this person, although there is a difference. On the right side you can see the face is little black, and also the hand, and on the left side you can see the face is uh, I don't know for what purpose this image was created, but we are using it for our own purpose, that we want to say that you cannot divide, because one personality, you cannot divide it. So the white side is also one part of this entity, and the black also one part. This is not to say that the white side is a language and the black side is the culture, or the vice versa. That is, the black side is the culture and the white side is the language, or I mean the opposites also, both sides. But to give the idea that two sides of the same coin. If you see this from this side, you can see the culture reflected in the language, or if you see this side, you will see the language where the culture is also working behind this language. So language and culture cannot be separated. They, each word, each sound of one language has cultural elements in it. This, because this is the main topic of this, so I think I should not talk more about the ideas that are coming in the subsequent slides. Okay, the inseparability of the language and culture. Language is part of culture. Culture plays a very important role in language. Even in the development stages of a language, culture has its own share, which is of course incorporated in the language. And also the language also is a biggest tool for the expression of the culture. Language simultaneously reflects culture and is influenced and shaped by the culture. The way we, and in the previous lecture, we have talked, two lectures we have talked about the culture and its major characteristics. And I think we have come to know that the culture is the whole life, is the culture. The art, the artifacts, the values, and the underlying assumptions, what we do, the way we behave, the etiquettes, the manners, our language, our festivals, our different occasions of happiness and occasions of sorrows, and how we celebrate our happiness, and the ways and the relationship between the kins, and also relationship between our neighbors, and also in the relationship with others, and so on and so forth. How do we spend time, what we eat, when we eat, with whom we eat, and what is our concept of goodness, and how do we perceive people when we see them. A lot of things, so everything is reflected. Language simultaneously reflect the culture. So when we use the language, actually we, in these words, spoken or written, the culture is reflected, and also it is influenced and shaped by the culture. So language is the mirror of culture. That is the language. If you put the culture in front of the language, you can see the culture. You can see it. People can see a culture through its language. So that's why many anthropologists and also many researchers in the area of cultural studies, they also study the language discourse for this purpose, to understand the cultural peculiarities of a certain nation, of a social group, and so on. uh, Again, we have metaphors to understand this inseparability of language and culture. We say if you say the culture is iceberg, the visible part is the language with a small part of culture. The greater part lying hidden beneath the surface is the invisible aspect of culture. This reminds us the pyramid that we saw earlier, and we saw there that the outer part is artifacts, and then the values and the underlying assumptions. So if the culture is iceberg, the visual part is the language with a small part of culture, but values and underlying assumptions are deep rooted, and of course they are lying hidden beneath the surface. Only the invisible part aspect is much more than, but the visible part is mostly reflected through the language. And the metaphors that we can discuss here, the language is blood, like blood, and the culture is like flesh, and they make both a living organism, because blood alone is nothing without flesh, and flesh without blood is nothing. So both are needed to make a living organism. In other words, we can say that the whatever we call organism is combination of these two things, that is flesh and blood. So flesh is culture and blood is language. We have more metaphors here in this slide. You can see the language is like swimming skill, and the culture is the water. I think this is so clear that if there is no water, no swimming can be imagined. And if you know, the water is there, but swimming skills are not learned, and people don't know how to swim, no swimming can take place. So both are necessary for this communication, for this activity, for this thing which is called swimming. And in this way the communication takes place. You know, water is essential element and the swimming essential element. When they get together and join the work, so communication takes place. That is when the language with the cultural reflected cultural elements is used, communication takes place. There is another metaphor, which is language is the vehicle and culture is the traffic light. This metaphor says that the you know, vehicles, if they are left without culture, I think the probability is that they will hit or they will create accidents. The traffic lights or the regulators for the vehicles on the roads, and they keep the traffic you know, in an organized way, because transportation of what you want to say to other people can take place with this combination of the vehicles, with the laws, with the rules that should govern, and the main part of the rules are the traffic lights. uh, Snyder's views on inseparability of language and culture. Language and culture are two symbolic systems. Everything we say in language has meanings. We say everything we say in language has meanings, designative or associative or denotative or connotative. When we say designative, we are talking about the dictionary meanings. We say designative or denotative means we are talking about the dictionary meanings. If I say the in Urdu, if I say मैंने इस कलम से लिखा, kalam, so focus on the word kalam, I think I'm talking about this device. And if I consult the dictionary, I would find this designative and denotative meanings are there. But if I say associative and connotative meaning would be like that, when we say in Urdu, usko kalam ki maar dena. Now, of course, in this associative or connotative, we don't mean in this sentence that the kalam is this device. We mean that the power given to that person, and the pen is used to reflect that power, which is, you know, in a written decision or judgment and so on and so forth. In an institutional setup where people use their powers through writing, through, you know, giving their decisions, giving their opinions about a certain thing, a certain people. So kalam ki maar dena, kalam se likhna is designative and denotative, but the kalam ki maar dena is the associative and connotative meaning. So language and culture are two symbolic systems. Everything we say in the language has this. So what is in it? The word kalam in this culture, Urdu, may not be used for such other purposes, because the cultural experiences working behind this language or working with this language has produced this sentence and phrase for this particular meaning. And you know, both both are part of this, the second one. Both are part of the second. First one is also part, but this is a universal culture that we are talking about this device. But there is specific culture where we are using a single word for this purpose. Okay, people of different cultures can refer to different things while using the same language. I think the example that I quoted can also be, recalled here. But this example, I took this example from the students. Dog, dog in English, it has a different. As for the designative or denotative meanings are concerned, no problem with dog, with kalb in Arabic and kutta in Urdu, and of course other words used for this animal in other. But the associative or connotative meanings are totally different. The image, cultural image of kutta in our culture. I think the moment I say kutta, it is a very negative word. But the associative and connotative meaning of dog in the Western culture nowadays, especially, dog is considered family member. Dog is a friend. Dog is companion. Dog is this. Dog is that. Very 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 interesting things are associated with the dog. So if you just see these words, let's say the word gadha, for example, another word in Urdu, and then the this donkey in English, goes especially in the American culture. And we say the American, they think that the owl. Take the example of owl. In the Western culture, owl is a wise bird, and but in our we say ulu, and we have other phrases that are very very sometimes abusive and negative for that. So what is the difference between designated and the associative meaning, or denotative and connotative meanings? As I said, the designative, the cultural differences do not become very clear. But as for the connotative and associative meanings of the words and phrases, the language, they become very, very clear. We can also think other examples that think about your own specific village culture in your own language. You will find many words that are even different from Urdu or from Arabic as well. Okay, now come to the survey conducted by the writer of this article, and here we are going to discuss, of course, the survey design, how the survey was designed. uh, the survey of word association, they designed. The main theme for the survey was the word associations. I mean the word associations related to the culture, designed for native Chinese speakers. So NCS stands for native Chinese speakers, and NEC stands for native English speakers. So remember this NCS and NES, because they will be repeated in the next slides as well. And in this survey, they chose these 10 words: food, clothes, family, friend, job, money, culture, success, happiness, love, etc. We can see that these words are related to both material and spiritual aspects of life. Of course, the food and clothes and family and friend, job, money, the culture itself, and the success, happiness, love, combination of tangibles and intangibles, both are here intentionally. They chose these 10 words related to different parts of different aspects of life. So the first idea was word association. What are the association of individuals to selected word or the words? And then they selected 10 words that are related to different aspects of life, where things eaten, and the relationship also, the financial aspects also, and then the matter related to happiness and love. They call it spiritual aspects of life. In our understanding, see, take the example of the word spirit, spiritual aspects. So, from the materialistic point of view, they think that happiness and love is a spiritual thing. But from a Muslim point of view, I think spirituality has a very different meaning. Anyways, it's again another example of the word association. So that we what we associate to this word and what other people associate to this word tell us the difference in their cultures. Okay, like this, the subjects were asked to write down six additional words or expression that they associate with each of 10 words. That or write down six words under the category of food, six words under the category of clothes, under the category of family, under the category of friend and job and money, culture, success, happiness, and love. So, in because they are 10, so in the end they will become 60 words from the each subject of this survey. Okay, yeah, this was the design of the survey. This was the design of the survey. Dear students, although we are discussing this article, for the sake of understanding close relationship between culture and language, but I also like to draw your attention towards one thing more, that you can also think a research like this, and this would be a field research. You collect the data from the subjects, from your samples, from the people, and then you analyze. And this simple quick description of the survey design can give us a very good example, very simple example, how this kind of research can be done in translation as well. Of course, this is language and culture. We can also do translation and culture. Anyways, this is just a quick remark on another benefit of this article. So the next was the data collection. How data was collected? They say they 40 copies of the survey. They distributed 40 copies to NES, native English speakers, and all of the NES subjects were EFL teachers working in China. EFL stand for English as foreign language. So they were the teachers of English as foreign language, and they were working in China. So they distributed 40 copies of the survey or the questionnaire. They distributed among 40 people, and then they received 28 valid questionnaires or surveys and collected. They thought they are valid. Uh, of course, the question of validity is determined by the researcher, because if the paper is there, the questionnaire, and half filled and not properly filled, or maybe the subject has not given due attention to the questions and just fill the paper in a very casual manner. So it is the discretion of the researcher to take that questionnaire into the research, or keep it outside of his or her research. Okay, 30 copies of survey were distributed to NCS, that is native Chinese speakers. Subjects were Chinese English teachers. Chinese English, they were Chinese, but they were English teachers, and others were postgraduates in English linguistics. Basically, they were speakers of Chinese language, but they were English teachers, and other were postgraduates in studying in English linguistics. Once again, 28 surveys were considered to be valid here. So 28 surveys in NES and 28 valid surveys from the side of NCS, from the Chinese and from the English speaking both. This was the data collection. And what was the population? Now, some remarks on the population from whom they collected this material, this data. Among the 28 NCS native Chinese subjects, 11 were male and 17 female, 12 were teachers, and 16 were postgraduates of English linguistics. So this demographic information or the bifurcation of age and sex is very important because they also tell the peculiarities of the girls associate, maybe the girls associate words with ideas in a different way as compared to the male within the same culture. Their ages also, age is another great big factor that determine many things. Their ages ranged from 22 to 59, that is about the NCS. Among the 28 NES subjects, that is native English speakers, 10 were male and 18 female, and 26 were Americans and 2 were Canadians. So both were, of course, native speakers, but they also, mentioned this classification that 26 were Americans and 2 were Canadians. And in the deep analysis, these things help a lot, although we don't find this kind of or the level of analysis here in this article. But as a explanation, as a explanatory note for my students, I must say that if you have data and you have this bifurcation of the age and sex and of course the gender and etc., you can also go deep into these things and bring more conclusions. The NES 28 subjects NES, their age range from 20 to 64. So we can say the age range is too much in NCS and in NEC, and for a certain reason because in they were selecting teachers of Chinese native speakers and then the English native speakers. They also included teachers, so that's why the age range is looks very big. Okay, after the collection of the data, and this is the population, is the collection of the data was analyzed, and among the 10 initiating words, when they decided to analyze the data here, of course, for this article, so they said the only one word food was chosen for analysis, and especially as I said for this remaining 9 words could have been, and I think they had done it, but not in this article. The Chinese words and phrases associated by NCS subjects were translated into English. There's a missing word. The Chinese words and phrases associated by NCS, because the article is being written in English, so it was a necessary. This was a necessity to change to translate the Chinese words into English for the sake of the target readers of this article. Then what happened? All the items listed by the subjects were classified into different categories. We will see those categories. I want to go back. They selected one word, which is food, for the sake of analysis for this article, as I say, because if one article can be written on one word, so I think you can write 9 more articles on each of the 9 collected words of association. And then then all the items listed by the subjects, items under one word. So if I write the word food, if you read the word food, if you hear the word food, what comes in your mind? Just write. Sorry, write down 6 words under this. So these 6 words, they were further classified into different categories, and we will see these categories when we come to the analysis part. Okay, the number that followed each item in the table indicates the item that word or phrase appeared. We will see that within the bracket there's a number, and we see that, or the number of people who listed that word or phrase. So within the bracket, that the number that we see is either the indicates the time the word or phrase appeared, or the number of people who listed that word or phrase. And I think it's same of result is same in the both way. It is the, the frequency of that item by the subjects. Okay, now we are coming to the quick, you know kind of food. As I said earlier, they mm, uh, they were classified. Yes, they were classified. Number one, point number one here. And then all the items listed by the subjects were classified into different categories. So here in the analysis, we are coming to the kinds of food, one classification. Then meals, another classification of those collected 6 words under food. Then the flavors, third classification. Then the description, fourth classification. Then the process. And then, you know these under these classification, they have analyzed the collected information under this food. So NES, native English speakers, and NCS, and here we have a quick list of, we can I can read out some of the names here. Hamburgers 5 times or 5 people, ice cream 4 times or 4 people, or pizza 3, and desserts 3, fruit 3, salad, groceries, meat, milk, pasta, steak, chocolate. uh, where we don't find this number within the bracket, that means only one person chose this kind of food: steak, chocolate, baked food, and candy, dumplings, chicken, hot sauce. And you can see the list on the left side, which is native English speakers. And the native Chinese speakers, of course, a lot of things are similar, but others are also different: steamed bread, noodle, rice, meat, fish, bread, egg, tomato, vegetable, cookie, chicken, Ghazi, no, hot pepper, salad, steamed stuffed bun, biscuits, apple, so on. You can see the list is quite different, and also there are similarities, but it's quite different as well in many foods. So the kinds of food we see this picture. As for the discussion, we need to discuss the kinds of food. We see that the native Chinese speakers and native English speakers have some food in common, like meat, vegetable, fruit, candy, salad, etc. Okay, uh, but there's number two is the specific food items listed the most by NCS, means the uh, native Chinese speakers, are steamed bread, noodle, meat, rice, etc., which are the typical food of the Chinese people. And hamburgers, ice cream, pizza, dessert, etc., are the representative food items for native English speakers. It seems that native Chinese speakers tend to associate the word food with more specific food items than NES do. What do we mean by the more specific? You can compare here quickly. They say vegetable, so meat is also a I mean, they can say the ice cream and hamburgers different way, pizza different way, but desserts different way. But in the NCS, native Chinese speakers, we see steamed bread is a specific, noodle is a specific, and rice is a specific food. So this aspect is, the Chinese, they are more prone toward specify food items than the native English speakers do. Now, the other category that was made out of the collected data, meals. So it seems to us that the difference between breakfast, lunch, and supper are much more significant for native English speakers than for NCS. Uh, yeah, the way they are mentioning breakfast, lunch, and supper, tells us that these timings or these foods are these meals are very significant for native English speakers as compared to the native Chinese speakers, and it tells us something about the culture. It might be because for native Chinese speakers, breakfast, lunch, and supper tend to consist of similar food, but what the uh, native English speakers have for breakfast, lunch, and supper are quite different. So, because the English native speakers they take different food in these meals, breakfast, lunch, and supper. That's why they're when they are talking about these three meals is more significant than the NCS people. Flavors, as for the flavors concerned, native English speakers include many more foreign flavors of food than native Chinese speakers. We have seen that they were talking about the dumplings, a very uh, a special dish, Chinese dish, and we guess this is the researchers guess we guess that this is because NES travel more widely. So that's why when they think of the food, they include the foreign flavors of the food. But the native Chinese speakers they did not. Of course, this also tells the culture of this specific group of people, and I think this is also true that the Europeans usually travel a lot as compared to the Asian people. This could be my personal observation is also like this. Description. We find that native English speakers tend to use more adjectives. This is very important to describe their food and feelings than native Chinese speakers. As if the native Chinese speakers they just eat food to fill their stomach, and the native English speakers they take food for the taste and for the color and for the feeling and for their association with that food, or we infer that this is related to their economic development period. Now, this is the opinion of the researcher that why do they use more adjectives to describe the food and also for their feelings toward the food than NCS do. The researcher thinks that it is related to their economic development period, that by the virtue of their economic development and they have passed through many phases of the economic development and now have reached their level where they want they want to express their feeling, because they are they 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 are not poor people. They have tasted a lot of food in different countries, so they have developed this kind of habit to use these adjectives or to describe the food and the feelings, their feelings for the food. Number three, here people only pay more attention to the quality of food when they have enough to eat. This is also related to point number one, of course. If people have enough food, and they will talk about their quality, they talk about their color, flavor, smell, and the enjoyment aspect. In this case, shall dominate. Again, the process, we find that native English speaker tend to think more about the cooking process than the noise process. I'm sorry, this is no description, this is a process, how to prepare the food. We find that native English speaker tend to think more about the cooking process than native Chinese speakers. A bowl and plate are the typical containers of food for native Chinese speakers, whereas native English speakers use a knife during their meal. So, fork and knife and all these things that are used for eating the food. That is the difference. Americans tend to think of McDonald's. NES tend to think more about nutrition than NCS. I think every aspect that we have seen in the description and the flavors, and here in the process, tell us the same thing, that because these people have traveled to many countries and their exposure to the world, different cultures is much more. So they have now refined their um, uh, taste and their perception, their thinking about the foods. So they also, attach all these qualities, characteristics to what they eat, because the word food comes in mind, and when they write, when they give their opinion, so they are more concerned about the mm, about the qualities, characteristics that describe the quality of food. Okay, with this we can come to the conclusion. The intimate relationship between language and culture is strikingly illustrated by this survey, of course. And I think any survey conducted between two languages of the world will tell us the same story. The items filled in by native Chinese speakers convey Chinese culture, of course. This is very quite understandable. And the items written by native English speakers convey English culture. Here, I just want to explain one very important question that may arise in your mind, because it is there. Here, when we say the English culture, actually we are using this term in a general way, because the sample they selected for this survey were, as we have seen earlier, they were the teachers working in China, belonging to USA and Canada. So I think they themselves, 28 respondents or the subjects of that survey, they must have developed their own culture, which is partially different from their original culture in US and Canada. So we should understand, as researchers, we should understand these statements within this context. We should not detach these statements from the context in which they developed, on which they emerged. Okay, the reference of language, or what are the reference of the language, or the entities, things, events, what happens, states, processes, characteristics, and relations that exist in the culture. I mean, in the conclusion, we can also say that the reference of language are reflected in these things in this survey, only in this survey. Between language and culture, there's always an interactive influence. Both, of course, we have discussed this in detail earlier in this lecture, and we shall be discussing in the coming topics as well, that they are so they're dynamic parts, influencing each other. The two cannot exist without each other, of course. They combine to form a living organism. It's a kind of repetition that has been said earlier. So the relationship between culture and language has been explained through this survey with tangible example, which is the example of the food, and the analysis of the data collected from the subjects of both sides, that is the uh, native Chinese speakers and native English speakers, and the analysis of this single word and the words associated to this single word food from both sides, uh, give us very interesting pictures of both the cultures, and also tell us very important things about the minute differences between two cultures. Okay, I hope this is going to be the last slide as for the lecture is concerned, our survey. This what you see is just one survey that I conducted inside the classroom, and luckily it was girls class, so I selected the word marriage, and I asked the student to write six words under although in my class we didn't have English speaking student, but we had Urdu speaking and Arabic speaking. But English speaking we just imagine. And now see the if I ask the student to write six words, six or more words under this word marriage, shadi, and then we found this was the result. So we have this mangani, anguthi, lehenga, chudiyan, shopping, gana bajana from this culture. And from the Arabic culture, we had this majhurat, malabis jahiza, ta'aluf, aila, istiqrar. So although few things are maybe we can say that they are similar, but there are istiqrar. We don't find istiqrar is that now your life is stable. We don't find that in Urdu culture. Urdu culture is mainly related to the things that happen, the festivities, also the marriage, and what we do, the events that take, of course, take place during the marriage ceremony. In the English, the imagined one, of course, not the real one, the planning of life and the slavery, love, no interference, responsibility, patience. See, there the although it's imagined, and I think this is not baseless imagination. You see that the concept of the words that have been written here, they are most related to the serious part of the life. See, no interference, responsibility will be enhanced. You need to be patient in life, planning of life. And is it slavery that the both think that they have become slaves because the culture is totally different? And maybe love is also is marriage source of love, and so on and so forth. And you can interpret anguti. Take just one example of anguti here in our culture in Urdu, and especially the mangni ki anguti, what is called mangni ki anguti, and its meaning for the girl and its meaning for the boy, and the cultural meaning of where that is the denotative meaning, associative meaning on part of the girls, and the associative meaning on part of the boys, and associative meaning of this like this. It's a metal, nothing. But the denotative meaning are very simple, but the associative meaning in this situation is so deep, so versatile, so complicated sometimes, that lot of beliefs have been associated with this single thing. Because this survey was conducted in the girls, so that's why the focus is on the things that attract the girls more. But if the survey is conducted, I think, in the boys, for Urdu, I'm talking about Urdu speaking people, I think they would bring different words. So my suggestion here is that you people on both sides do this exercise, and the word remains same, is marriage, and you try to write six words in your own language. I suppose for this semester, the people sitting in the female campus, they would write words in Urdu only, and also in the male they would also write Urdu. But the comparison would be between male and female association, word association would be different. This is what I expect. I don't know what would be the real result, but when we meet face to face, I would like you remind me. I would like to see the list very quickly, and we can spare few minutes for the discussion of the words that you have written under this word, because this will also This will also help you to understand the concept of this really close relationship between culture and language. I just forgot to. I could not include the slide here, but the next your next let me check your next uh, topic. Your next is I mean the reading is the next article, which is related to the title of the article is impact of culture. Is it impact of culture on translation? So you are supposed to read this article, Impact of Culture on Translation. This is your next assignment, reading assignment for discussion inside the classroom. And of course, you are reading my lecture, our discussion. Thank you very much. Take very good care of yourself. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you, help you, and make the endeavor of learning easier, more easier for you, because you are our future. You are the future of this nation. You are the future of this ummah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.